Good evening and welcome back to Gameday U Hoops. We are thrilled to be back in studio today. I'm your host, Mecca Thompson, and joined with me is Hallie Moss, Stone Webber, and Blake Mullen. Now, the Sooners wrecked Tech last night, 50-77, and Emoja Gibson was electric on the court, scoring a season high of 30 points and going 8 for 11 in three-pointers, helping the Sooners end Texas Tech's three-game winning streak. Now, to kick things off, what was the biggest takeaway from last night's game? You could say Mo Gibson, rebounding, or the impact in a tournament spot. Or if you have another idea, you can run it by me. Hallie, you first.
You mentioned him. Mo Gibson was on fire last night. The whole Sooner squad did great, playing one of the best games I think they've played all season. They shot 13 for 28 from the three-point line, but like you said, Mecca, Gibson alone shot 8 for 11 from the three-point line, tying his record of 8 three-pointers in one game. He also made 30 of the Sooners' 70 points last night. I think he's often overlooked on defense, too, because of how much shorter he is than others at 6'1", but like Porter said after the game, he had to guard bigger players all night. Some of their squad had 6'6" players on the team, and he still performed.
Hallie, I would agree with you there. I think this is one of the best games OU has played all year. But the biggest takeaway from this game for me was OU getting off of the bubble. Going into bracketology yesterday, OU was the 59th team, and 64 teams total make the tournament, excluding the first four. I think OU got back on track after losing 7 of 8, and a great home win against Texas Tech, who was the 9th team and arguably the hottest team in the Big 12. So I think with this win and if OU can get any kind of other win this season, I think they're a lock for the tournament.
You know, you said it right there. I don't think Texas Tech I think they're the best team in the Big 12. I still think about that, but we'll get into that later. The key for OU is defense. We know this. Jalen Hill and Ethan Chagua, they dominated Bryson Williams last night. Yeah, one of the best forwards in college basketball, the best one in the Big 12. He was 2 for 7 shooting, 5 points, and 3 rebounds. I don't think that's very good for the best forward in the Big 12. I don't know what you guys think. That's not good. And let's look at Texas Tech and just the defense as a whole. They had 55 points. 55! They were averaging 73 per game. This defense last night, they were dominant. And we want to talk about, OU can't rebound. No more. We cannot say that anymore. Texas Tech had 26. Once again, not a big number. 26 rebounds last night compared to OU's 34. This is the best performance OU has had all year, and it's frankly not even close.
Yeah, that's a good point. And so to switch gears a little bit, who has been the key cog to the Sooners' success? There was a little debate last week, and some believe that the Sooners are missing that secret weapon. So do they even have one? Give me your take.
This was an easy choice for me. I'm going with number 1, Jalen Hill. He's OU's most consistent player, and he has started every game this season. He's a triple threat everywhere. He leads the team in both offensive and defensive rebounds, can knock down threes, and can post up and finish in the paint. He averages 29 minutes a game and averages 8.5 points a game. And what Blake said earlier about his defensive performance last night, he shut down Bryson Williams. And if he wouldn't have, I don't know if the Sooners would have closed out that game like they did.
Yeah, I agree. Bryson Williams going into that game, it was a big. I feel like it was going to be a big concern. He just matching up against OU's defenders. He's just way bigger than them. But I'm gonna have to go with your pick, Hallie, for the biggest takeaway from this game for me was Mo Gibson. He was the key cog last night. Like you said, 8 of 11 from 3, 24 points. His best game all year, arguably the best game of his career. And like you said, he performed on the defensive end of the ball, which is what Porter Moser has been striving for all year long.
Definitely the biggest game of his career. I mean, I don't even think it's close. They needed the win last night, and he balled out. 8 threes? Yeah, that's a big game. But I'm going to tell you who my key player is. He's the player who dominated through November and December, Tanner Groves. I know he has had a rough one. He played bad in January. I understand that. But if the Sooners want to win down the stretch, they need November, December form of Tanner Groves, plus Mo Gibson on the perimeter. If you can pair that up together, I mean, just look at what Groves was doing in November and December. He was averaging over 14 points per game. 14. That's a good number. It's a good number. And if you look at against Tech, 2 points. 2 points. In 12 minutes, he got in foul trouble early, but just 3 days before, he was 10 for 17 for 23 and 9 against Oklahoma State. We need consistency out of Tanner Groves for the Sooners to succeed, especially in March.
I agree. I think it's great. It would be great for OU to have that kind of balance like they've had in the past, where you can have a guy in the post and not necessarily just running the offense through them the whole time, but also having a guy out there who can shoot. And Mo, last night, he looked like he was confident in shooting the ball. In past games, it seems like he's a little timid, but it seems like Porter gave him the green light last night, and that's why he was able to knock down 8 threes.
Well, when Gameday U returns, our analysts will break down the upcoming matchup between the Jayhawks and the Sooners and tell you what you can expect. Stick around.
Awkward. I'm the awkward silence. You try to avoid me, then there I am again. But an awkward silence can be a great thing, like Kelly here is about to demonstrate.
You haven't really been yourself lately. Are you okay?
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move. So I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
How prepared is your family if a tornado shows up at your doorstep, or a flood, or a hurricane? You can't just turn away a natural disaster. That's why it's important to go to ready.gov/plan now. It has the tools and tips you need to make an emergency plan with your family. So if disaster comes knocking,
let's go.
You'll be ready to help keep your family safe.
It's just a pizza.
Yes. Make a plan today.
Now, the season has had its highs and lows with technique, and the question is, how can Porter get the offense up and running? OU is averaging its lowest points per game since the 2012 season, so is there anything they can do to put more points on the board, or is it missing shots or something in the play style? Let me know.
I think it's all in the play style. I think they need to start playing in sync, trusting the game plan, and working together. The Sooners thrive off the energy they get when their shots are falling and they go on big score runs. But when their shots aren't falling, their offense speeds up, they get sloppy, it leads to turnovers, and they're also the leading team in the Big 12 in turnovers with 15 turnovers per game. When things aren't going their way too, individual players start trying to do it all themselves and they try to force shots, and that doesn't help anyone. There's a lot of new players this year. They're not used to playing with each other. They haven't been playing with each other for a long time. So it's understandable, but if they want a chance at competing in the NCAA tournament, they're going to have to start trusting each other and start working together. And going back to what I said about the turnovers, your key player, Tanner Groves, last night, I know he didn't play for long, but he had 2 turnovers in those only 12 minutes.
It was a rough game. There is no denying that. It was a very rough game for Tanner Groves. I mean, like I said, we need November, December form of Tanner Groves. I'm not going to argue that he looked great in January. But at the same time, if you look at it, if you want to talk about key players, what was the Sooners' record when Tanner Groves was the guy? They were 11-2. What happens when Tanner Groves gets in a slump? They go 3-8. Is that good? I don't think 3-8 is good. When Groves is leading the team, 11-2. When he's not, 3-8. They need Tanner Groves to succeed.
I think we also have to look at the non-conference schedule. Was not that great. They did also lose to, if I'm not mistaken, it was Utah State. Now
they had some big wins though. They beat Arkansas. They beat Florida. They had some good wins.
Florida's right on the cusp, right about OU right now, actually.
16-8.
Right, getting right there on the cusp of being in the tournament or not. But I think everything has changed for OU ever since coming into conference play.
Exactly, but I mean, no player on the Sooners has been consistently good. If you even look at Jalen Hill and Mo Gibson, They combined for a great 0 for 9 shooting against Oklahoma State on Saturday. 0 for 9. Is that good? That's not a key player if you ask me. That's not. 10 for 17 for 23 and 9 boards. Tanner Groves. That's your star player. Feed him and you win games.
He comes up big, but just last night, we saw what happens when he's not playing. We still can win.
Absolutely.
Other players make up where he's lacking.
And like I said during my point for that, though, it's not simply Tanner Groves needs to be a ball hog and take over completely. They need balance. I said that in my point. We need Mo Gibson. We need Tanner Groves. But the main person, it does need to be Tanner Groves, but we need balance.
So why should it be him if he's so inconsistent? I mean,
everybody on the team is inconsistent, but if you look at
but you're describing him as this just huge man. Like, it's Tanner Groves, but if he's inconsistent, I mean.
When they hit their stride this season, which was early on in the year, when they were 11-2, everybody was talking about, oh my gosh, basketball is good again in Norman. Who was the hero? It wasn't Mo Gibson.
No one was a hero. No one was a hero.
Tanner Groves was playing pretty good. Tanner Groves was looking very good in November and December.
Only November, December, though.
I understand that.
Where'd he go?
I understand that.
It seems like he went back to Eastern Washington for a bit. But going back to the offense, I would have to say, Hallie, I'm going to disagree with you. You said that they speed the game up. They never speed the game up. They play too slow. They only start running plays at about 17 seconds in the shot clock. That is way too late. They don't take enough shots in transition. They try to slow the game down too much when it's really not their style. The best thing OU has, they have a little pump fake, and try to go around, and then they pass. They have a wide open three. They don't take it. They dribble in. And then EJ, Harkless has been getting a lot of hate recently because he hasn't been performing, but a lot of the shots he has to take are late in the shot clock. He's just trying to put something up. Sometimes they go in, but I just think they just need to speed the game up more and get their guards going. They have quick physical guards. Get them going in transition and see what happens.
So when they speed the game up, though, that's when they make the mistakes because it's too fast. Everybody's like, whoa, what's happening? And then once they get to the bottom of the shot clock, like you said, they're making turnovers. Steals are happening, so what are they going to do?
Right. I would say, though, I would rather have a turnover in transition rather than waiting all the way down in the shot clock, because I think at that point everyone's getting a little nervous. They're just trying to figure out, hey, can I just put up a shot here or there? But just more transition offense.
Okay.
You don't necessarily need to be up tempo, but I do agree. Waiting until 17 seconds, that's
almost half the shot clock right there.
That's half the shot clock. But here's the big issue. There's two of them. Number one, you're averaging 7 offensive rebounds per game. 7. That is last in the Big 12. That is terrible. Number two, like you touched on, 15 turnovers per game. 15. It's pretty simple. When you turn the ball over and when you can't get an offensive rebound to save your life, it's less opportunities to score. No second chance opportunities.
All right, Blake, I'm going to have to hold you off on that one. So the Sooners are taking the court Saturday against number 8 ranked Kansas, and the Jayhawks have proven consistency all season, and their record proves it, 19-4. So what can we expect in this matchup?
I think the biggest thing we can expect is Kansas out-rebounding the Sooners on both ends of the court. The Sooners are averaging 29.8 rebounds per game, which is 302nd overall, while the Jayhawks are averaging 35 rebounds per game, which is 59th overall. Kansas also has senior David McCormick, who's the second best offensive rebounder in the country. The Sooners need to be aggressive in the paint if they want any chance of beating these Jayhawks off the board, including Jalen Hill and Tanner Groves, who are the leading rebounders for the team. Offensively, though, I think both teams are going to be taking a lot of deep shots. I think it's going to be threes back and forth. Kansas is shooting 49.6% from the field goal range, which is 5th overall. But we saw just last night the Sooners can compete with that. They can shoot from that range, and I think it's going to be a high-scoring game on both ends.
We saw last night that OU could shoot. They've done it in one game. One conference game, they shot well. They made 11 threes. One guy had 8 of them. I disagree. I think OU's going to have to slow the game down if they want to have a chance against Kansas. They're just too big. Abaji is way too big against Tanner Groves, who I think on defense is soft. The offense runs through him too much, so when he gets back on defense, he's a little too tired. Jalen's great. He's a little small when you put him up against McCormick. I think the key to this game for OU would have to be guard play. How can Jordan Goldwire, Emoji Gibson, Cortez, if he plays, and then Alston Mason even, how can they play against DeJuan Harris?
Yeah, I'm going to call it as it is. I don't know if this is going to be a good game for the Sooners. If you look at the first meeting, OU lost 64-67. and it was literally best case scenario everywhere. If you look at it, they had more offensive rebounds than Kansas, 12-11. I just talked about the team who can't get an offensive rebound. They somehow had more than Kansas. If you look at total rebounds, they had 31 to Kansas's 22. And OU, the team who can't stop turning the ball over, only had 11 turnovers to Kansas's 13. They still lost the game. I don't know how, in best case scenario, when Kansas is playing sloppy, you still lose at home. You're not going to Allen Fieldhouse to win. It's just simply not happening. If OU is to keep it close, though, they're going to have to play stellar defense like they did last night against Tech.
And like you said, Ochai Agbaji, I believe he had only 10 or 11 points when they came to Norman the first time,
10,
and I don't think you're going to keep getting that. I don't know if you're going to get that at Allen Fieldhouse. No. I know that they just lost a very tough game to Texas in overtime, but I think this is going to be a revenge game for Kansas.
Yeah, that's just going to motivate them, you would think, especially being at home. And once again, like you said, Agbaji had 10 points the first matchup. You think he's motivated? I think he's very motivated in this one.
They could be motivated, but they could also be losing their confidence right now after that loss.
Interesting takes here. Well, we're going to take a quick timeout, and when we come back, Hallie, Blake, and Stone will be picking this weekend's Big 12 matchups. Stick around.
Awkward. I'm the awkward silence. You try to avoid me, then there I am again. But an awkward silence can be a great thing, like Kelly here is about to demonstrate.
You haven't really been yourself lately. Are you okay?
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move. So I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
How prepared is your family if a tornado shows up at your doorstep, or a flood, or a hurricane? You can't just turn away a natural disaster. That's why it's important to go to ready.gov/plan now. It has the tools and tips you need to make an emergency plan with your family. So if disaster comes knocking,
let's go.
You'll be ready to help keep your family safe.
It's just a pizza.
Yes. Make a plan today.
Now it is time for Pick'em Big 12 Saturday, where the analysts will break down all of the matchups happening this weekend. So our first two teams are West Virginia and Oklahoma State. Will the Cowboys or Mountaineers come out on top?
Mecca, I am going with the Pokes. OSU over Virginia for sure, for two reasons specifically. First, West Virginia is 1-5 on the road. And second, their leading scorer, Taz Sherman, who's averaging 18.7 points per game, is questionable with a concussion. I don't see West Virginia beating OSU without Taz Sherman. That's it.
I'm gonna have to agree with you, Hallie. I think OSU is gonna come out on top of this one. The last home win for OSU was an emotional win against OU, and like you mentioned, West Virginia has lost 7 of 8 and just 1-5 on the road. That one win was the University of Alabama at Birmingham. Now that's a great football school, but this is basketball. This is basketball season. So I think Isaac Likely, who Oklahoma State did lose just earlier in the week to TCU, they fought back in it, but Likely had 19.6 boards and 5 assists. I think he'll have a field day against this Mountaineer defense.
So let's just call it as it is. If you look at the entire Saturday slate of games, and you're like, hey, what game do I not want to watch? This is the one. We have landed on it. Oklahoma State, 14.9 turnovers per game. They had 17 last time they played West Virginia. And let's look at West Virginia. They started the year 13-2. But what has happened since then? In January, they averaged 14 turnovers per game, and they lost 7 straight. Both of these teams are super sloppy. But what team is riding the high right now? It's West Virginia. They just had a dominant win over Iowa State. And when you are picking teams who frankly aren't that good, let's look at who the X Factor player is. You touched on it. He has a concussion. He had it during the Iowa State game. If Taz Sherman is going to play, I think West Virginia goes into Stillwater. I think they take care of business. And hey, Taz Sherman even said it. And I quote, "We're going to shock the world." I'm going to trust him. He's the best player on the court. They're going to shock the world.
Shock the world. They're
Shock
going
the
to
world.
get off the bubble.
Give me West Virginia.
Are they going to beat OSU, who is 11-12? I guess. Yeah, it would be shocking the world if Taz Sherman's not playing.
Hey, you're going to have to ask him. Don't ask me.
All right, well, next up, going head-to-head are the Kansas State Wildcats and the Cyclones from Iowa State. Who's going to dominate in this matchup?
I am taking the Cyclones. Now, I know they're coming off a 3-game losing streak, but I think that streak is about to break at home. Kansas State is only shooting 42% from the field goal range, which is 9th in the Big 12. And even with that low percentage, they still attempt the second most threes per game in the Big 12. If Iowa State can keep up the perimeter defense performance that they've been showing the rest of the season, I think they can shut out K-State, and I don't think it's going to be that big of a game.
I think K-State does what some Big 12 teams do, and like OU seems to do, live by the 3, you die by the 3. And this game, they're going to live by the 3. The guard duo of Nigel Pack and Mark Smith will fuel KSU going to Hilton Coliseum. Like you said, Hallie, Iowa State is on a 3-game losing streak after being ranked 20th in the AP poll. Maybe they got a little bit in over their head. They got a little bit cocky. And now I think they're going to lose to a K-State team who is not very good. Mark Smith averages 11.8 points per game and 8.4 rebounds per game. 8.4 rebounds per game as a guard, that is insane. And then Nigel Pack shoots 43.5% from the 3, which is a better field goal percentage from it than his team overall. But I think the Wildcats are going to come out on top.
You want to talk about Nigel Pack? That might be the most underrated guard, not just in the Big 12, but in the nation. The 6-foot sophomore guard. He is a baller. He had 31 versus Baylor, which was more than half of their points. With that being said, I'm still taking Iowa State. Isaiah Brockington, he is going to get it going. He has shot under 40% in the last 3 games. This will be the game he gets back to his 46-47% range. He's averaging 16-7 this year. He has been an absolute beast. I don't think Kansas State has the personnel to match up with him. Iowa State, like you said, this will be the game they finally get back going. And let's face it, this has been the most inconsistent team in the Big 12. But when they're on, and they look good. This game, they'll be on.
All right, guys, now TCU and Texas Tech are taking the court. Who's walking away with the W?
So Tech just did have a really tough loss against OU, but they are undefeated at home, and I would not bet on TCU at snapping that streak. With the way that Tech plays defense, TCU would have to shoot lights out for them to win, and I just don't see that happening. Also, in the past 4 years, Tech is 6-1 against TCU.
Not to mention, Hallie, I mean, the stands are just electric. If you've seen their fan base at Texas Tech, it's going to be pretty hard.
Exactly.
Like you said, trying to take that W.
I would not want to be TCU playing in Lubbock during that weekend.
Well, I would want to be TCU going into that weekend because Texas Tech just shot 2 of 17 from the 3-point line. That is terrible. OU has great OU has great interior defense, but their 3-point defense has not been great this year. And TCU isn't getting a lot of love. They're 16-5, season sweep over OU, beat LSU in the Big 12 SEC Challenge, led by Mike Miles, who averages 15 points a game and 4 assists. I think Tech will be looking, it's just a rebound game. We'll get on to next week. But I think they might want to slow down and give TCU another look.
TCU is the most underrated team in the Big 12, and it's not even close. Once again, they are number 1 in offensive boards, number 1 in total boards, but at the end of the day, Texas Tech, they're the best team in the Big 12. That's why they're going to win this game. They don't lose at home, and they are the best team in the Big 12. They have 5 players averaging double digits. 5. That's so unheard of. And let's look at their starting lineup. They have 4 seniors and 1 junior. This is a veteran team. They're not going to get in a slump. They are one of the best teams in the nation, and that's why I think I'm going to add this in there. Texas Tech is going to the Elite 8 this year, and they're winning the Big 12.
The Elite Eight. Wait,
Elite
winning
Eight.
the Big 12. Okay, so is it a regular season or is that like conference championship? The tournament?
The tournament, yeah.
They're going to win both.
No, the tournament.
Oh, the
they're,
tournament.
They're going to win the tournament. That's going to be the momentum they need to go into March Madness.
So Kansas.
I love it, though. They're a veteran team, and that's what you have to love about them. Like I said, you have 4 senior starters. 4. And the other guy's a junior. It's just a hard team to bet against, especially with, I know he did not look good, but Bryson Williams, we think he's going to have another 5-point game. No, it's not going to happen. They have great guard play. They have one of the best forwards in the nation in Bryson Williams. I love Texas Tech this year.
So you just said that they're the best team in the Big 12.
Yes.
Why aren't they ranked number 1 then?
In what? The Big 12?
The Big 12.
It's just rankings. I mean,
Is it just rankings?
It's just rankings.
I mean, if it's just rankings, then like
Yeah,
the
no,
team that's ranked higher is better than that team.
I mean,
That's
Right,
like
the
that's what that
performance
means.
they lost to
shows.
Kansas 91-94 in double overtime
So they
at Allen Fieldhouse.
So
the
they-
other game they
And so
won
th-
against
and that's
Kansas.
when the pressure's
They-
on
they
in
split with-
overtime. You
they
can't
split.
crack.
They split with Kansas. I don't know what more I can say. I mean, they split with the other. You're talking about 8 and 9. It's not like Texas Tech is unranked versus Kansas, who's undefeated. It's
So
8 and 9 in the nation. Texas Tech. Yeah, I'm going to take the veteran-led team in the tournament.
So if you think Tech is going to the Elite Eight, but they just lost to OU last night, how far do you think the Sooners are going?
You can't match them up like that in basketball. That's just unfair to do. Teams take bad losses all the time. It's a sport where, I mean, even look at Baylor. Baylor played 10 games in January. Baylor dropped 4 games after starting 15-0. That doesn't mean all 4 of those teams who beat Baylor are going to be national champions this year.
I think Baylor and Kansas though are both better than Texas Tech. I think it proved last night.
I mean, it's the best conference.
I think it is the best conference in college
It's-
basketball. There's no doubt about that. But I think one of the biggest takeaways from last night is that they can't shoot the ball. From 2 of 17 from 3 is very bad.
It was a rough night.
At that point, you need to lean on your interior play, and it just couldn't happen. And I get what you're saying. You can't compare all the time. But OU, if OU can stop them, why can't a surprise team in the tournament shock them as well?
I just don't see Bryson Williams being 2 for 7 from the floor with 5 points every time he plays. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but looking at recent games from Tech when they played Kansas, when they played Baylor, they were competing and winning those games for a reason. It's not because they're a terrible team.
Well, next up, Baylor and the Texas Longhorns are hitting the rim. Will Texas be able to stay alive after that close win to Kansas?
I think Texas is staying alive, and I think they are a hot team right now coming off that win. And they're almost unbeatable at home, not to mention. The Bears have been alternating between wins and losses for the past 2 weeks, but that's likely because guard LJ Cryer, their best 3-point shooter, has been out the past 4 games. And Cryer makes them a higher level contender. I don't think Texas can win without him.
I agree. The most exciting matchup from this weekend comes from the Farrell Center in Waco. Electric energy, like many arenas around the Big 12. And the defending national champions are still recovering after they got destroyed at Allen Fieldhouse. They lost by 24 points. Completely unacceptable play from Scott Drew's team. But what better team to do it against than Chris Beard's Horns? 2, like you mentioned, Adam Flagler and LJ Cryer both shoot over 40% behind the arc for Baylor. Those guards, Courtney Ramey and Marcus Carr. Marcus Carr's come in this year. He's played great for Texas, but he hasn't lived up to that potential. I think Baylor's guard play will lead them on top.
It's just injuries with Baylor, though. I mean, this team started 15-0. They held number 15 in the nation, Villanova, to 36 points. 36. That's unbelievable. The defense and offense this team plays is incredible. But they played 10 games in January. We saw it. Fatigue, injuries. It has started to mount up for the Bears. I think they're going to get hot before the tournament, but right now, Texas is the better team. Texas blew out Iowa State, and Texas beat Kansas. They're coming off 2 big wins. I think Texas wins this one.
All right, well, last but not least, Oklahoma and Kansas. Will the Sooners or Jayhawks come out on top?
Now, I know I'm going to get grief from you two about this, but I am taking OU over Kansas. Kansas is coming off a loss to Texas, so they might be coming in fired up, but I think they're going to be coming in less confident than usual. Plus, OU is coming in with tons of momentum from that game last night, and I think they've got a chip on their shoulder from their last game against Kansas, where they only lost by 3. OU's defense also showed up last night finally, and if they want a solid chance at beating Kansas, which I think they can do, they need to show up and step up their defense even more than they did last night.
They're going to need to come in with a little bit more than just some momentum. They're going to need a blessing because it's in my opinion, it's going to be impossible. Just Kansas dominating first. It's not happening.
I'm gonna have to go with Mecca on this one. OU hasn't won at Allen Fieldhouse since 1993.
That's a long time.
That is a very long time. Before any of us were born. But I do think that trend is going to continue. OU was 13 of 28 last night from three, 46%. They're not going to shoot like that again. I mentioned it earlier in the show. They will not shoot like that again this year. They haven't had another really good shooting performance, and that's what they would need against this high-velocity Kansas offense. Jalen Wilson, Ochai Agbaji, David McCormick inside. I think it's just going to be too much for the Sooners.
It's pretty simple. Agbaji might just be the best player in the nation. Yeah, I said that. He can guard 1 through 5. And like you said, OU's not going to hit 13 threes. It's simply not going to happen, especially at Allen Fieldhouse. This game, I touched on earlier. It was best case scenario for OU when they lost 64-67. Agbaji had 10 points. A player who averages over 20 on the year, must I add. Yeah, not going to happen. He's not going under 20 again. This game, I'm just going to say it, OU probably loses by at least 15.
15. I do think it'll be a little closer than that. I would probably say
I
about
agree.
6 or 7. I wouldn't be surprised if OU comes out to an early lead, but it wouldn't. But if OU can't keep shooting the way that they did last night, they're going to be in for a long one.
All right, well, that is all we have for you for this evening for Game Day U Hoops. Be sure to tune into our women's segment to keep up with the Big 12's #1 ranked Sooners. For Hallie Moss, Stone Webber, and Blake Mullen, I'm Mecca Thompson. Good night.